People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply. People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome, my good people. Welcome to the CJ Moneyway Show. And I'm with your host, CJ Moneyway. Let's get it.
Welcome, my good people. Welcome to the CJ Moneyway Show. Today I have a guest on, a woman who is an avid reader, theater instructor, writer, and podcaster, Lucinda. Hey, how you doing today, Lucinda?
I'm good. How are you, CJ?
I'm good. Glad to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
So, before we get started, how is it to be a theater instructor?
Well, it's really good if you have done theater first, which is what happened for me. I did a lot of theater in an undergraduate and graduate school, and then I worked in the Portland, Oregon theater scene. They had a lot of semi-professional companies, and I worked backstage. I was stage manager. I was an actor. I built costumes. I've done all that. So then when I started teaching, it was so much easier to help the students understand about how to create a character, how to analyze the story, how to figure out what kind of costumes they should select for their scene, things like that. And so I just loved teaching that, because when I was teaching theater, I would see these students come in and they didn't have very much self-confidence, but then by the time they left, they would be able to get up in front of any class and do a presentation because they had taken acting class. So that was very fulfilling. I loved it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Coming up in school, like junior high school and high school, I was in drama a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My father actually told me, instead of going off to college and wasting their money, I should have went to acting school over there in Chicago.
Yes, there's a lot of great acting stuff going on in Chicago.
Yeah. So it is Chicago, Atlanta, but and so I think that a part of it, like as far as the creativity of dramatization and things of that nature, it gives you the ability you already had a creative side of you to write as you write novels that we'll talk about, stage plays, and even podcasting, because we're able to, we're not afraid to get in front of people. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think everything works for the good. Like sometimes you may not think that this is working to get to this part over here, but then when you all put it all together, you're like, you know what? That's why I learned that first, and that's why this came about, and we put it all together. As far as the things that you're doing, as far as
Mhm.
theater instructor, and then writing novels and podcasts, and all the many hats that you're wearing right now.
Yes. Well, I'm actually now retired from teaching. Uh, Fortunately, because that was like the fifth element, and I didn't, I didn't have time for all of everything I was doing. But yeah, I do keep up with my students, and there is a community theater here in our area that somehow survived the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It started before the pandemic, and now it's going really great guns. And there are two men in charge of it who were professionals in the theater world. And well, actually, my colleague Dave might still be a part of Equity, which is the actors union. But yeah, it's such a jewel in the community. It's there, and it's not the only one. There's an improv group now, and another theater company in the area. And, because Tucson is an hour and a half away from the town that's north of us. My husband and I live 30 miles or 20 miles from town. But it's, if we had to go to Tucson to see a play, for us, it would be a 2-hour drive up there to go to the professional theater companies. And so now it's nice to have, just 30 minutes away, we can go to the play. We can go to a play. So I just applaud anybody who does any kind of performing, because, you don't have to make a living doing it to contribute to your community.
Yeah.
And to yourself, too.
Yeah.
Your personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I totally agree with you, Lucinda. So, growing up watching television shows with your family, what was one of the favorite shows that you all used to watch together?
Well, my mom and dad were both really involved in church. So, my brother and I, we have a lot younger sisters, but my brother and I would watch Star Trek. And when mom and dad were not doing church stuff at night, they'd watch that with us, the original Captain Kirk Star Trek. Yeah. And we would talk about that. We'd also do like Saturday or Sunday night movie night, because they didn't have HBO and Cinemax and all of those way back when. So they would, play movies that were maybe a year or two old on the Sunday night special movie, And it was kind of cool having, at that time, it was kind of cool having commercials, because we could talk about the movie and when the commercials were happening, and not disturb the movie or not have to pause it or, like we do now. So, Star Trek was one of our favorites.
Yeah. So, like when I saw that, it was kind of intriguing, because I can remember those days where I would watch TV shows with my mother. We don't really do that as a family nowadays, especially with younger kids. They off into their own thing with their YouTube channels and playing.
Right. Yeah.
But me and my wife, we do try to, when I'm off, we do try to have a movie night and watch TV shows together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we call that like our date night. And I can remember me and my mother back in the day, we would watch the Dukes of Hazzard and
oh, right. Yeah.
Adder and things like that. So
yeah,
I remember those days. That's why when I saw that, I had to ask the question, because you just don't get that nowadays. When
right.
time when you spend together watching shows and things of that nature. So
yeah, I think that's kind of sad. My youngest sister does with her kids, but they're getting older now, so Yeah. They're off doing their own thing sometimes.
Yeah,
But
the phone got us all consumed right now. Well, got us all.
yeah.
So, tell us about your journey getting your BA in religious studies, theater and speech, and your MA in theater arts.
When I graduated high school, I was tired of studying. I didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my parents I'm going to work for a while. And that first year out of high school, I did something with the church that's sort of like the Peace Corps, except it was the church thing. For a year, I did that for a year, and then I worked in Montessori schools and daycare centers and stuff like that. And about when I was approaching, I think I was 21. My parents lived in Spokane at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I lived there. I didn't live in their house, but I lived in Spokane too. And I said, I'm ready to go to college now. So I signed up for one of the colleges in Spokane. And my dad just happened to get a really great job at the Bremerton shipyards. And he said, don't stay here in Spokane. Come with us. So I did. And when we got there, they said, we're going to pay for your first year of college at the church college, it was a private college. So it was kind of expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But I took them up on the offer, and that was in Iowa. And so I was 22 when I started college, which was really great because I was ready to study.
Mm.
And I said to myself, because I'm kind of I was a movie TV junkie, But when I went to college, I said, I'm not going to watch television. If they have like a special movie that the whole campus can go see,
Mm-hmm.
or if there was a small theater in the town in Lamoni, Iowa, and we could go there on a special occasion. But for the most part, at night I studied.
Mm.
And my first major, I was a singer. So my first major I declared as music, but I don't read music very well. I'm not a songwriter. I can listen to the music and replicate it, but I discovered I took in that first year Introduction to Religion, and I just loved it. And part of the reason why I loved it was because of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
The stories of how the religions got started and the myths and the Bible stories and all of that. So, but I was the only woman in that major, and there were about 15 or 20 of us, I think. It was a fairly small college. So, it was the 70s and mid 70s, and there were a lot of young men that didn't think I should be in that degree. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at every meal, they would come with their Bibles and see, you need to follow these. And I'm like, I don't remember what I said to them, but finally they got it that I was not going to change my mind. It's like, get out of my face, kind of. I wanted to like smack them in the face, but I was a nice girl.
I could tell.
But that was really stressful. And then I was beginning or ending my second year. That's what it was. I was ending my second year, and one of my instructors that I happened to be working for, I had a work study job. He said, go buy a journal and start writing, because I was pretty angry, about all of that. And I took it home with me at the summertime, and I took a couple of classes at Olympic College during the summer. And one of them happened to be interpersonal relations, taught by the acting teacher at that college.
Mm.
And at the end of the term, I think they had like 8-week courses. He said, have you ever thought about acting? And I said, well, yeah, I really like that would be kind of fun, I think. So he said, well, I think you should go try that out. So I did. When I went back, I tried out for a play. I didn't get a part, but I got I got to work backstage.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started auditioning and I got parts. Or I worked backstage on plays, and that and journaling really helped me get over so much anger. And there were other things that had happened too that I needed to, heal from. So then I just started taking theater classes alongside my religious studies classes, and I graduated in 1979 with that. My husband was not finished with his degree because he's younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just added the theater degree. And then when we moved to Portland, I got this job at it was a travel school, a trade school.
Okay.
Hiring people, that take your tickets and, all that. And, oh, I hated that job. It was horrible. And the people, it was a really toxic work environment too. That was the other thing. And something happened, and I practically had a nervous breakdown about something that happened at the work. And I said, that's it. I'm not working here anymore. And I signed up for my master's at Portland State. And I loved that. I loved working in the costume shop with them. That was my student job, working in the costume shop. And I stage managed plays, and I was in plays, and I just loved it. I loved it just like I had when I was doing my BA. And so when we moved to Arizona, after we took our trip around the world, we sold our house to do that, to finance that. So we needed jobs. And so I became a substitute teacher. And I just substituted at the high school because I didn't want to deal with little kids anymore. I was close to 50 and I was too tired. I was like, I can't deal with little kids.
Yeah.
So the drama teacher was getting ready to retire. And when she found out that I had a master's in theater, she said, you need to apply for my job when I leave. And Arizona has this thing where you can teach on an emergency certification as long as you are working toward getting your certificate. And so that's what I did. I got hired, and that's what I did. And I got I didn't plan to get a master's of education, but the school that I went to changed their program, and that's when I was already signed up. They said, "Oh, now you're going to get a master's." It's like, "Oh, okay, more money."
Okay, cool.
And yeah, that's how it all happened.
So you was talking about your journey that you sold your house and funded that. That was the question that I was going to ask. So tell us about your 3-month journey where you traveled around the globe.
Mostly we were going to visit people that we knew in various parts of the world. The older of my 2 younger sisters lived in Tokyo. Her husband had a job that it was based in Tokyo. And we wanted to go there. And then we knew some people in Germany and the Netherlands. And there was going to be a trip to Stonehenge and Glastonbury, but that fell through. So we said, well, we're still going to go there when we decided to sell our house and take the trip. So we went there. We stopped off in Paris. We had a contact in Paris. Somebody in Portland knew somebody in Paris. And then mostly we were going we'd go to the art galleries because my husband's an artist, and sacred sites like Stonehenge and Glastonbury Tor, places like that. We went to Bath for a day. We didn't see the International Heritage Site, which was sort of stupid. I didn't realize it was there. And then we went to Greece. I loved Greece. We had theater places that we wanted to go, and art galleries and things, and ruins, of course. And then we went to India, which we didn't have any contacts at all in India. We had contacts in Greece, but not in India. And that was really a difficult place to be without someone to kind of be a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
But But we got to go see the Taj Mahal, which is 20,000 times more spectacular than any picture that
Wow.
you look at. It's so gorgeous. And you come through the gate, and we just stopped and went, whoa, because it's so, it's so magnificent. And so that was worth it, the whole thing. And also we took a tour. We were staying in Delhi, and we took a tour of Delhi and went to the place where Gandhi was cremated. And I was just bawling the whole time we were there. And our Sikh guide was so great. Oh man, he was elegant. He was articulate. Yeah. And so every place we went in Delhi, I was just hanging on his every word because he was so great. We only stayed in India about a week. And then we have a friend who is Australian. So we went down to Australia to see him and his family. They live in Adelaide, South Australia. And then we ended our trip in Tokyo for another. So we spent 3 weeks, I think, in Australia and 3 in Tokyo. And then we flew home. And we got home about an hour before we left because of the international dateline.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing journey, and I guess it's good that when you and your spouse can do something like that together, it makes it even more better. Because I've interviewed some people that said they traveled around Europe and on a yacht, and some people. One guy just interviewed. He did the desert, walked in the desert, Arizona desert by itself.
Oh, whoa, yeah. Yeah, there are trails from southern Arizona all the way to northern Arizona that you can take.
Yeah. Well, that sounds interesting. So let me ask you. So after having a successful career, how's retirement treating you right now? And what is your weekly blog, Sage Women's Chronicle, about?
Well, Sage Woman Chronicles, I started because when I started my novel I published it in 2017. So I guess I started it in 2007 or 2008. Anyway, I didn't have writing skills. So I started my blog in 2013 to improve my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly I was just writing about a book that I read or something that happened in the news or, something that I was learning on my, learning to love myself journey, so it's a hodgepodge kind of things. But I was trying to improve my writing. And so I've been doing that since 2013. So it's almost 11 years old. And I'm kind of thinking about maybe stopping it. I don't know. We'll have to see. And what else did you ask me about my blog?
Retirement, after having a successful career.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I can say the last teaching job that I had before I started teaching at the college, I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning, driving an hour, and then getting there at 7-ish in the morning and leaving. If I was directing a play, I wouldn't leave there until 4:30 or so, and then come home and go to bed at 8:00. So for those years, I was so tired. When I started teaching at the college, I was only teaching 3 classes. I was an adjunct because they don't have a degree. Well, they have a degree in theater, but they don't have a full-time person teaching there. It's a community college. So, but I just love getting up in the morning and saying, okay, I'm going to try and get this and this and this done today. And then I can take some time off in the afternoon to watch a movie or read my book or, sometimes I have to cook or clean. But mostly it's just this relaxed day, but I always try to get something done every day on one of my creative projects or more than one of my creative projects. So that's really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. you could just wake up and not have to go punch in the clock.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do get up and make breakfast for my husband and send him off to work. But he's only got 2 more months. So,
yeah. So are you guys planning another global trip? Once he retires, would you guys do that again?
I don't know if we will. My youngest sister, my mother died at the end of February, and we're going up to see. She lives in the Seattle area, and that's where my mom was too. And we have some more things that we have to do to kind of take care of mom's belongings that are being disseminated. And so we're going up there in August. And on the way, I'm going to be talking to some of my podcast guests and interviewing them again. But that sister, the youngest one, and she and her husband want to move to Spain when they retire. And their son, their daughter is graduating college in December, and their son is graduating high school in 2 years. So they have about two or 3 years, and then but they're all going to be in Spain this summer because my niece is an archaeology student and she's going on a dig. And my brother-in-law and nephew are going to go walk the Camino. And then my sister's at the end, she's going to just fly out there. So if they move to Spain, we're going to Spain because we didn't get to go to Spain on our trip.
Yeah. Put that on the bucket list. So your podcast, you said you're traveling, you're going to be interviewing your podcast. So what is your podcast story power all about?
Well, stories have been such a big part of my life. And one of the things that I do when I'm reading a story or watching is I'm analyzing the characters. What decisions did they make? What were the consequences of those decisions? Was it a good decision? Was it a bad decision? What kind of personality type are they? What can I learn from what they go through? So my podcast is pretty much about that. About what, and one of the things that I learned as I was doing my podcast was that, people's personal stories can teach us just as much as some fictional story.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of widened my the people that I have as guests, because I want to hear their stories. How did you decide to move to Paris and paint? Or what bands have you played with? And, do you write your own music? And, stuff like that.
Yeah. You found a lot of interesting things, just like me talking to you. I found out some interesting things, not only about yourself, but your sister and their family and the things that they're doing. Like, I've never heard of somebody going to Spain where you say for a dig. Like, I don't even know what that is, but I guess it's something where you say astrologists or something like that is dealing with the earth. I take it that it is.
Yeah, they're digging up ancient ruins, ancient sites. That's what they're doing.
Oh, okay.
Because Spain has this colorful history of a lot of different cultures living there. And so, last summer she went to, where's Angkor Wat? Cambodia. And this summer she's going to Spain. And so, she wants to be one of those people that analyzes the bones that they find when they dig up a site.
Yeah.
Because there are lots and lots of ancient ruins of cities and things that they're finding. Turkey is a really great place where they're finding lots of ancient cities and, settlements and things. And so Spain too, this is a medieval settlement, I think, that where they're digging this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say that as a theater instructor, there were some things that you learned from your students. So can you tell us a few things that you learned from your students as being an instructor?
Oh, yeah. Well, one of my very favorite classes to teach in college was a class called Dramatic Structure. And it's all about how the playwright or the screenwriter and director put the play together to get the theme across. So I would pick plays that had been made into movies, and I would also pick just movies that had interesting structure, like going backward and forward in time, or Cloud Atlas has 6 timelines, so that's interesting. The structure's interesting because they bounce between the timelines. And I remember one time we were watching Taming of the Shrew.
Mm.
And it is a kind of a problematic play because Petruchio is just looking for a rich wife, and he hears about Catherine, who is this really angry woman. And she's very famous in the whole town for being angry all the time. That's why they call her a shrew. But she has a real reason to be angry because her father favors her sister over her. Mm-hmm. He loves his sister more than her. And so it's the anger has just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Well, Petruchio, when he meets her, they're attracted to each other, but he's got to break her of being angry all the time. And he does it in an abusive way. But we were watching it, and at the end, there's this little thing where there's a bet among the 3 new husbands. I bet if I call my wife, she'll come right away. And nobody thinks Catherine is going to come to Petruchio right away. Mm-hmm. So they are sure that they are going to win the bet. Well, it turns out that the other 2 wives are like, oh, tell him I'm busy. I can't come right now. But when Petruchio sends for Catherine, she not only comes right away, but she comes dragging the other 2 wives with her. And she has this whole little speech that's also very problematic for feminists, where she says, he works hard and he does this and that and the other thing. Well, the production that we were watching, one of the students said, he didn't only tame her, she tamed him too. Mm. And I had never seen that before. And it was because of the production that we were watching. Mm-hmm. And where he realized, I have this wonderful wife and I need to treat her better, And so, that was one. And then I was so surprised. One of my teenage students, he couldn't have been more than 19 when he took my class, absolutely fell in love with Casablanca and went right out and bought it. And he had a podcast of his own. And so I had him as a podcast guest. And that's when I found out that he fell in love with Casablanca. And it was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. And the third one was when we watched Cloud Atlas, and there are 6 timelines, and it's based on a book. The book is structured very differently than the movie. But one of the things one of my students said, each of the timelines is a different genre. There's the historical genre, and there's the dystopian genre, and there's the love story, and there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that before. So things like that. It's just great when you're having conversations with people and they say something that you never thought of before.
Yeah, that's how life is. You like, if I thought of that before, then I would already know it. So you can always learn and get things from anywhere. So I only have a couple more questions for you. Who is your favorite authors or actors of all times?
Oh, well, I have Gregory Peck up on my wall.
Okay.
One of our favorite family movies was To Kill a Mockingbird. And my youngest sister and I say it all the time. Atticus Finch is exactly like my dad, almost exactly, except my dad wasn't a lawyer. When Jim is up in the tree and he says, okay, come down for breakfast now. And Jim says, I'm not going to come down until you play football or baseball for the Methodists. And Atticus says, I'm too old to play that. Well, I'm not going to come down until you say you're going to. And he goes, oh, okay. And he just walks back in the house and leaves Jim in the tree. That would be my dad. He would do that kind of thing. So, yeah, Gregory Peck, of course, you cannot talk about classic movie actors without talking about Cary Grant.
Yeah.
So we have lots of films of both of those. But some of my favorite women are Betty Davis and Greer Garson and Ginger Rogers and Barbara Stanwyck and Katharine Hepburn. I mean, I have a lot. You can't say who is your one favorite. I have a lot.
The list can go on and on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Humphrey Bogart. I mean, they're just, and the movies that they made have a lot of relevance today.
Mm-hmm. So
not all of them, but a lot of them do.
So these was like the type of movies and the type of shows that you watched that kind of garnered your interest into this type of film, would you say?
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And so my last question would be, and I've enjoyed your conversation, listening to all these different stories, exciting stories. Well, writing your book, which one was the most challenging to write and why?
Well, the first book was, I think, the hardest because I had to do a lot of research. It has 2 timelines, and one of the timelines is a woman who goes from Vermont to Oregon on the Oregon Trail. Now, I happen to be an Oregon Trail descendant on both sides of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I didn't know all of the details of how hard that trip was. I didn't know where they stopped to resupply. I didn't know how they forged the rivers or, even how many wagons they usually had and how long the trip took. So I had to do a lot of research for that. The second one now it's a sequel, but for both of the books, the woman who's living in our current times, that's the hardest part to write. And this second book, it started and stopped so many times because in the past, her 3 times great grandmother's involved in the suffrage movement. And when I started the book in 2014, when I finished my rough draft of the first novel, there was nothing going on in the women's movement in current times, So it wasn't until 2017 or 2018 when that happened. And then I had things to write about. But then the pandemic happened. Do I include the pandemic?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of had its starts and stops. But I have it pretty much the rough draft finished for the second book now. And I have a couple of things that I need to go back and add in. And then I can really start editing it. And I have somebody to help me with that. So
over time, I heard you say earlier that you really wasn't a good writer. So over time, have that developed into your own creative writing, or do you have someone that helps you with your creative side of the writing?
Well, I think anybody, even the most talented writers, have to have some other people look at the book. Because, I know the plot outline and I think that I have followed that for both my stories, but there are plot holes or there are places where I've written some stuff that's really important to know about the characters, but you don't need to include it in the book. It's it slows the story down or something. So that's why it's always good to have a whole 2 or 3 more people look at it and help you shape it. So I'm to the point where now I'm ready to have someone help me shape it. And the woman who's going to help me is a ghostwriter. She helps write novels and things like that. But she also is writing her own novels, and she just learned how to write screenplays too. So So I'm going to have her help me. She's one of the ones that's going to help me. Yeah.
So besides your book that you're working on, is there anything else that you're working on that we can look forward to coming from you? And where can people buy your book from and social media outlets?
Oh my goodness, that's a lot. Well, the books you can buy on my website. I mean, you can click and it'll take you someplace to go buy the book. Yeah, the books. Once my husband retires, we're going to revamp my website.
Okay.
But you can find them there. The Space Between Time is my first novel, and it's been out since 2017. So it's hard to find it on Amazon because I haven't sold, maybe I've sold 100 or 200 books. So it's not, high up on the list. But yeah, I'm on Facebook. I have Sage Woman Chronicles on Facebook. I also have a personal Facebook page. I'm on Instagram. It's just Sage Midgordon on Instagram. I have the YouTube channel, The Story Power on YouTube. And I'm on LinkedIn as Lucinda Sage Midgordon. You can find me there. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, the Sage Woman Chronicles is on WordPress. That's my website.
Okay. So I enjoyed your conversation today. A lot of interesting things that you talked about. And one thing that I can take from that is that just the joy that you can take from learning from other people about certain things. Like you say, your student that you didn't know that liked Humphrey Bogart until you had you interviewed him, like he was inspired by your class. And I guess when people come back like that makes it all the interesting and the more fulfilling when you feel as though that you have touched somebody in a way to do the things they're doing in life. The inspiration.
Yes, right. Yeah. That's the fulfilling part for teachers.
To see that student come back and say, look, especially, and I was on the other side, especially those who you thought wouldn't amount or make it. And, because it's like, no. They'll pay or it seems like they're not paying attention.
Right, yeah. Well, I was fortunate to teach a class that was an elective and people wanted to take it, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Except when I was teaching English, when I was teaching in Douglas. But yeah, those students were enthusiastic. So yeah, I was lucky. I had a great student.
Yeah, you were lucky. And I was lucky to have you on the CJ Moneyway show. Hey, thank you, Lucinda, for coming in. Thank you all for listening to the CJ Moneyway show. Go check out her books. She got a new novel coming out. Check out some of her stage plays that she put out. Hey, you have heard it here on the CJ Moneyway show. Holla.